please kick us off.
Well, welcome everybody. How many made it to the Val Hoyle, Congresswoman Hoyle and Senator Merkley Town Hall at SWAT campus? Well, thank you for being there. That's the first one I've missed in about 6 years, and I usually get to MC those. Quite an honor, and so I'm glad you all went, and I really admire and appreciate the effort they put out to get to every single county, and Congresswoman Hoyle is taking and doing that great tradition. Hey, I was born just, doesn't make me special, but I was born just a couple blocks from here a long time ago. And one of the things that is really special for us as legislators is to get to recognize special people. And I was able to recognize David's father on the House floor about a month ago, and on a very special joint resolution. And other people have gone before us. Jackie Winters was the first, and I knew her back in 2011. She was the first black American woman that was the majority leader, and just a special soul, an incredible business person, businesswoman, and others. And so last Wednesday, part of the reason I couldn't get back to district to see the senator, and just because it's a jammed week, I got to recognize my mom, Merle, right here. Would you stand up, Mom? Mom, if I was as popular as you, I might run for governor someday and win. So anyway, she is a phenomenal person, and I told everybody on the House floor that she celebrated her 54th anniversary of her 39th birthday, if that makes sense. A great cook and a tremendous nurse, and just loves her community and still is contributing. So I hope I can keep the energy that she's demonstrated. So yeah, House District 1 is the California-Oregon border of the coast to the east side of Coos Bay, and then over to Highway 42. So by the way, that's the Gold Beach, Brookings Harbor, Gold Beach, Port Orford, Bandon, east side of Coos Bay, over to Winston-Dillard, and then powers Coquille, Myrtle Point in the middle, and not to leave out Bandon. So it's a real honor to be at the state capitol. What you learn real fast is how good are you at mastering details? How good are you at getting up early? How good are you at building a good staff? How good are you at building relationships? And that's a real adventure for me, and I seem to have the energy, and I'm grateful for that. And I think it'll last well. I hope it will, because serving publicly is a tremendous privilege. And you know, Oregon has a lot of issues, and our culture has a lot of issues. And you know, we're anxious to hear from you today how you feel we can solve problems and how you can help us do that. We're just, again, very glad to be here, and I have a lot of friends, a lot of people I've known my entire life. So thank you all, and that was about 3 minutes, right?
Thank you, Representative. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm your state senator, David Bragg-Smith. In fact, my predecessor, Wayne Krieger, is here. Wayne Krieger, of course, served in the State House from 2001 until 2016. So can we get a round of applause?
Wayne, would you stand up, please?
For his 16 years of
16 years.
Thank you, Wayne, for everything that you've done for Oregon. I have had the privilege to serve in the state senate since 23. Prior to that, I was your state representative from 17 to 23. Prior to that, I was your county commissioner from 13 to 17. Prior to that, I was your some of your city council president in the city of Port Orford and the Port Orford School Board, as well as the executive director and chamber president for Port Orford North Craig County. Currently, I serve on as vice chair of the Senate Energy and Environment Committee. I serve on the Senate Committee on Veterans, Emergency Management, and Federal World Affairs Committee. I serve on the Joint Committee on Legislative Policy Research. I serve on the Joint Committee on Ways and Means Subcommittee on Public Safety. I serve on the Joint Ways and Means Committee, the full committee, which is the state's budget committee. But I also have the privilege to serve in a number of other appointed positions in the legislature. I am the co-chair of the Council of State Governments West Wildfire and Disaster Preparedness Committee, which is the western states from Wyoming to Alaska and Hawaii. My co-chair Watts is from Nevada. He's a Nevada Assemblyman. It's an honor to serve in that role as well, considering the nearly 1,000 legislators in the western United States, 8 standing committees, 16 co-chairs, not 8 Democrats, 8 Republicans. I chair as co-chair of the Oregon Legislative Sportsmen's Caucus. I also serve as the Senate Republican delegate to the Pacific Northwest Economic Region, which is the Western states and the Western Canadian provinces, mainly focus on trade and energy policy there. I serve as the Senate Republican delegate to the Oregon Climate Action Commission, formerly known as the Global Warming Commission. I've been that delegate since I was in the House for quite a number of years. I serve as the one senator that sits on the Infrastructure Finance Authority Board. It is Business Oregon's infrastructure board for resources that go out to our communities for water, wastewater investments, infrastructure of that nature. And the one fun one, maybe, is the co-chair of the Senate co-chair of the Oregon Legislative Wine Caucus. There's a lot of vineyards in my district. You heard how big that is. It is, of course, Senate 60 legislators and the 60 state representatives, 30 state senators, 2 state reps per 1 Senate district. So we have, of course, House District 1, which is all of Curry County, as Court mentioned, around Coos Bay. Really starts again at Scottsburg Bridge, goes almost to Cottage Grove. This is the whole Senate district with Senate District 2. Then goes all the way over to Crater Lake, and then down and around and down to Myrtle Creek, and then back up and over 42 to here. So look forward to having a great discussion today. I know that we have differences of opinion, as we do in the legislature. Honestly, in the legislature, we probably agree on 97% of the legislation we pass is bipartisan and so forth. Remember with your questions, we're state legislators, not federal legislators. There's a lot to keep up with when it comes to what's happening in Oregon, especially when we're in session. I only try to I try to keep, of course, the thumb on the pulse as much as I can with what's happening in DC, usually the things that are impacting Oregon and how they do so. So thank you for being here, and so we'll start with some tickets. And Jonathan, appreciate you being our mic stand for us, and I want to thank Jeremy. Really appreciate you opening up the space for us to have this conversation. Thank you so much. All right, first ticket is, last 4 numbers are 6067. And forgive me, I've been fighting a cold, so I'm trying my best.
My name is Marty, and I live in Pittsburgh. What I have a question for Roxanne is why are you so against ballot by mail? I think it's one of the most endearing things about the Oregon rules for electoral, and I just can't understand why you would want to solve that kind of vote.
Thank you so much for that. I do own it. I love it. I love that bill. Broke Olis, actually. it broke the Oregon Legislative Information System because so many people wanted to testify for and against that legislation. I drafted the legislation.
Explain what it is first.
I'm happy to, thank you. We have it right here. What the bill does is it establishes an in-person voting on the date of an election as the standard method in voting and during the election. It requires electors to present valid government-issued photo identification when voting in person. It removes language concerning the number of voting booths required in each county based on population and gives the Secretary of State consultation with the county clerk's rulemaking authority to determine the minimum number of booths required. It requires voting booths designations to be open on the date of election for at least 8 hours and requires them to be open until 8 p.m. It allows electors who are waiting in line to vote at 8 p.m. to be considered starting the voting process. It also allows an elector to request a ballot by mail no later than 21 days before the election. It retains the vote by mail as the primary method of voting for during an election for military and overseas. It requires electors to present valid government-issued photo identification when requesting a ballot to be returned by mail. It requires all ballots be returned by mail to be received by the county clerk by 8 p.m. on the date of an election. And then it repeals the related to alternatives of secrecy envelopes, because I believe that we all should have secrecy envelopes for your ballots. And then it defines what government issued photo identification is. Excuse me. And then it is referred to the voters of Oregon at the next general election for them to vote by mail to whether or not they want to approve it. There is been a lot of changes to the voting system in Oregon and vote by mail in Oregon since it was enacted nearly over 20 years ago. And that is, we've added motor voter. We've added, you're automatically registered to vote when you become with Oregon Health Plan through OHA. We've added, the legislature has done these things. We have added a 7-day grace period for when you turn in your ballot from the election day. And so I drafted the bill in 2023, didn't get a hearing. Drafted the bill in 2024, didn't get a hearing, and finally got a hearing in this session. Appreciate Chair Jama for allowing the discussion. Nearly 15,000 submissions of testimony were submitted, and in fact, the IT director told me that more people signed up to testify for that bill than in all of the testimony for every bill in the 2024 short session. The majority of the people that signed up to actually testify were in opposition. We heard the. Did I say something funny?
Let him finish, there's more.
The majority of the people that signed up and did testify were in opposition, or in favor, of the bill. The majority of the people that submitted testimony in writing were in opposition of the bill. And some of the testimony was individuals that excuse me, I'm speaking and answering a question. You will have an opportunity to answer a question. This isn't a back and forth, remember?
You're being unclear.
And so the opportunity and some of the testimony was there was 4 people. There was a woman who testified that her son had moved away 4 years ago and still received their ballot. at their home. There was testimony where a gentleman called in from New York and was still receiving his ballot over there. So I was able to have a hearing and appreciated the hearing. Don't know if the bill is going to move, considering I'm in the super minority in the state legislature. Doubt it's going to move, but at least we're able to have a conversation. And again, the bill was a referral to the voters to reaffirm on whether or not they want to keep vote by mail. Thanks.
Senator Smith can answer.
So, hey,
Very long answer.
time out. The only way
This
this
isn't how this is going to work.
yeah.
You asked me a question, I answer it. Just like we are respectful to Senator White and Merkley when they're here. This is how we're going to do that when you're here.
If I may respond to that, thank you guys. Thank you. I'm hoping we can go 2 hours without a breakdown here. And so we have a system that's proven to be very successful in letting everybody have a voice and ask a question. We came here.
Into the mic, please.
So,
Thank you.
okay. Usually I don't need a mic, but I'm gonna overcome this. I have a first cousin who took the place of, was appointed by Governor Brown. Bev Clarno, born in Langless, become Secretary of State when we lost Dennis Richardson, so I'm very proud of her. She loved vote by mail. What you need to understand, in the diverse district we have in Southwest Oregon, a lot of people have differing views, and they don't trust the system. And so that's why I don't want to have to speak over anyone. I'm trying my best here to respect everyone in this room, and I think we can do something that's got meaning here if we just give it a chance. So, people in this district overloaded the OLIS system that day, 9,000. And the reason was because they don't trust. Now, is that valid? I don't know. I like the new Secretary of State, Boice. I think if anybody can overcome and find solutions to some of the uncertainties we have in our elections in Oregon, real or perceived, he's the guy. So I'm going to support him. Okay. If you want to really talk about democracy, then if we put this to the voters to decide by mail, if they want to keep vote by mail, I think that's the best way. The votes will determine what the majority wants. So, and
I thought we already voted on that
Go by
25,
the
30
rules.
years ago.
Is that the end of your
well,
question?
why would you be fearful of voting again? Things change.
Nobody's
Things
wearing
change. Okay? And we know that things are changing.
6077.
Thank you.
It's been decided. It's been decided. Why are you trying to change? Leave it alone.
No. 6077.
Well, you don't know how this works. I got it right here.
Jerry Thompson, Colwood Indian Nation, Tribal Chair.
Good to see you.
Thanks
Great to
for
see you.
having this. I have a question for you two. I wanted to ask you about the recent GAO report, which highlights significant gaps in the federal oversight, excuse me, that's a little scary, of offshore wind development, particularly concerning inconsistent engagement with the tribes and the fishing communities. Given that Curry County has expressed concerns about potential impacts on our delicate marine ecosystems, historic culture sites, and view sheds, and the vulnerable local economies, how will you ensure that our rural communities' voices who've already voted down that we don't want offshore wind in Curry County? How will you help us with this?
I can answer that first. Tried and been successful in building a relationship with new treasurer, Elizabeth Steiner. And the main issue that she's dealing with in regards to investment for the public employees retirement system, the bill that I got a lot of flack from my Republican colleagues because I voted for House Bill 2200 so that she could have a little bit of leeway in where she put her investments, and she's got a great team. That door is open, and the first thing on that list is if and when, and it will, I think, surface again, is offshore wind. Right now, it's because of the Trump administration, it's not even being discussed, other than there's a study going on that you're paying for as a taxpayer, and the citizens have really expressed their absolute disagreement with. Brock Smith and I have worked on this for years to try and determine if it had any validity, and we made up our mind 2-3 years ago, my time as commissioner, his time as state representative, that there was no way that it could work. And it has not worked in the eastern part of the United States. It has barely worked in Western Europe, and that's only because the waters are shallow there, okay? They don't have the storms, the tremendous southern exposure that we have here. Thank goodness for the CT Klusi tribe, who filed a lawsuit against the entire process, but it will come back because there's just a bent to make it work somehow and ignore the damage to wildlife, ignore our economic aspects, our recreational part, why we live here, and so we're solid against it. I will tell you this, there was, I think, over 400 million that went to the city of, the Humboldt Port.
147.
Thank you. Too much money for us to count. So we had to take a look at that. Is that something with our ports needing money, with our schools needing money, with our counties, law enforcement, all the above? We had to take a look at that, but it didn't work. It couldn't work, and so we've been strong against it for the last almost 2 years. And we did our due diligence, but it was not workable for the south coast of Oregon, even though we had the best winds in perhaps the western United States. So thanks for doing your work on cutting that off. I appreciate it.
Chairwoman, I really appreciate you being here, and greetings to the Talawa Dini. When I was the county commissioner, I worked very closely with you and then Russ Crabtree. I assume you're talking about the U.S. Government Accountability Office report, the
Yes.
U.S.
Yeah.
Okay, GAO. I'm not too familiar with, of course, that. But there was a House Bill 4080 was passed in 23 prior to BOEM, and then Governor Kotek stopping the lease option off of Oregon. We've done a tremendous amount of work in this space over the years. I drafted legislation in 21 regarding this, so we can engage the legislature in the process. The BOEM would work with the governor at the time. Ultimately, we were able to have a number of meetings and stakeholder engagement. Ultimately, we were able to reduce the call areas by 86% of what was originally proposed by BOEM and push them off nearly over 20 miles off the coast. So the distance off the coast and the depth essentially led to no one bidding on the lease, and that is why Governor Kotek pulled it, and BOEM decided not to move forward. The technology does not exist on the planet to do something like that today. When it comes to the right now, VLCD is moving forward with listening sessions and community involvement, because that's what was laid out in House Bill 4080. It's really a table that was set by 3170, I think it was 3075, 3175, I don't remember. Oregon Solutions was involved. Heather Mann of the Midwater Trawlers Association is the head of that table, so to speak, so that our stakeholders are engaged in that process. So I'm sorry that I can't answer your question directly, Chairwoman, because I'm not too familiar with the USGAO report. I imagine the USGAO report tilts heavily towards BOEM, but as of the state of Oregon, they're continuing conversations only because of the legislation that was set forth in House Bill 48.
But we know we'll be back, and we'll be counting on, tribes will be the first, in my district, tribes will be the first to know, and we'll be counting on more resistant on that unless there's some kind of miraculous change in the system, and that's not gonna be for a lot of years.
And I'm happy, Chair Willing, to get you connected with the VLCD so that you can be involved, because I know that they're gonna be having a meeting in Brookings here in a few weeks.
But it's for Oregon. And the roadmap that I've attended, those people were all pretty much for offshore wind.
So the roadmap folks, again, are, I know, again, Heather Mann and the Midwater Trawlers Association have been involved with that since the beginning.
Okay,
And
thank
we're
you.
also, Chair Townsend, we're doing everything we can to work with the 5 state officers, elected officials, the governor, the treasurer, the secretary of state, right on down the line. And I think that is turning, but we just have to be on our toes because it will come back, regardless of the federal administration, I think. Have a big concern on that. Thanks again.
60-60.
Oh, that's me. Well, my question was going to be about the first gentleman asked, but I want to say, I respect you guys for coming here. I know you're probably been discouraged from this meeting with your constituents,
No.
but you guys are here. So we got the first question answered.
Yeah.
So now, what can we do about our sheriff and the board and our board at each other's throats? And they're trying to make another tax on the people.
Well, you got 2 former commissioners here that aren't involved with the county commission anymore. When I left my position as commissioner, I have told every commissioner since that I will be here for a resource, but I do not put my thumb on the scale on the issues. I understand what's going on in the peripheral. I understand, of course, the county's horrible financial position, because I was there. And we need to increase those ONC dollars that are promised to our rural communities and ONC counties that help subsidize. So and just real quick, we have 1,648 square miles in Curry County. 67% of that is federally owned. 22% is private timber, 7% is private farm, 1% state. It only leaves 4% of economically developable taxable land. And so that 67% of that big chunk is what is supposed to help fund our services. Those were the agreements that were made back in the 1937 ONC Act. Right now, ONC lands grow over 1.2 billion board feet a year, and we harvest about 147 million. Now, I know I don't want to go out there and clear cut it. I think, but we need to have some sort of sustainable management to mitigate catastrophic wildfire, but also fund the county services. Because in Curry County also, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there's roughly, I think there's 46 taxing districts. 47 taxing districts, and so the commissioners in the 80s, I mean, even the hospital used to be a county function, but then they were moved off into their own taxing district. And so with those separate taxing districts, if you're a resident of Brookings, you're kind of in the middle of the pack. You're paying, $8, $9, $10 a thousand already in taxes to fund different services. And so taxing our way out of this has always been frustrating. When I was your commissioner, I put forward a split rate levy, right?
Yeah.
To hopefully we would, shift off into a public safety service districts, because the people in the cities already pay for law enforcement, therefore they should not be taxed for law enforcement. But in that type of situation, it was based on services used, right? Juvenile department, jail, and so forth. But I hope that the commissioners and our sheriff can come together for the citizens and have the conversation, that the sheriff is able to give the commissioners the information that they're requesting to assist him in his department, and that we can all move forward for our residents.
Thank you. So glad you asked that question. The senator mentioned taxing our way out of these issues. And he also mentioned timber. He mentioned the ONC lands. We have a shared receipt system through the ONC that brings money back to our county, here in Curry County, to a slightly bigger level in Coos County. But part of that system, it helps pay for some of the services. The burden is getting to be more and more on the taxpayer instead of on timber. Timber can solve our problems. You couldn't possibly harvest the timber here as fast as it grows if you double the mills we have in this state. It's the gift that Oregon has. It's a renewable resource. We burn it up instead of properly managing our forests, and it is costing us deeply. The question is good, because if we don't turn the tide and start managing well and getting our, just take the California county, where we lost 12,000 homes and 30-some lives. We have enough timber in Oregon, just in the ONC, if you took the Forest Service out of the equation, the Forest Service lands, keeping them separate, okay? We have enough timber in ONC. It will only take about 250 million board feet. An average home needs 7,500 board feet, or 750 board feet to build a home. And so that's 700 miles south of us here. Our mills, the people we could employ, better management, less burning, less smoke, less watershed damage, less wildlife burned up. Oregon can absolutely harvest our way out of the burdens we're in. Now, 7 counties, Lake, Klamath, Josephine, Jackson, Curry, Coos, and Douglas. Our sheriffs have a tremendous burden as well with the cartels that are coming over the border, okay? I know a lot of people have a struggle to believe that, but if you live in those areas, you'll know how serious it is and how we're not able to battle back. Our state police, my middle son is a lieutenant of state police, and he's in charge of all drug enforcement in those 7 counties and has a great team. But they're also underfunded. Right now, we're spending 5.2% of our budget for public safety, which includes our district attorneys, by the way, and our police. So the 7 counties in the southern Oregon area, the commissioners, the reps, and the senators are getting together to try and figure out, can some of the state money that is being spent on health and human services come back to our counties to support our law enforcement? It is way over time, and that's why I'm so glad you asked, because it's, what are we going to be talking about 5 years from now? What kind of crime are we going to be dealing with? And if you just keep hitting the taxpayers, we're going down the wrong path. Thank you.
They may take Curry County apart. If they're not solvent, part will go to Coos and part will go to Josephine County.
If I may,
You're making a good argument,
I'm not,
and we should be concerned.
I'm less concerned about that and more concerned about a state mandated tax.
What's that?
A state mandated tax. I mean, there's,
It's not gonna happen.
there's,
People are gonna vote for it.
well, they would if it's statewide. So Portland could raise the taxes for Curry County.
That's right.
Because they're already frustrated that they feel that their tax dollars subsidize our schools, public safety through state police, and so on. So they could. 60/90. Anybody? 60/90? No? Okay. 60/65.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, I'd like to thank Court and David for being here today. We appreciate you spending some time here in Curry County. As per that last question, yes, we have a mass here in our county government. Is there anything that you all can do to help us to get the sheriff to talk to our county commissioners? Well, I believe have sued him for not showing up to meetings, not communicating with them. Is there anything the state can do? Because here we are in a situation with basically no law enforcement at the county level. Anything at all you all can do to get those two entities to talk to each other? Thank you.
Tim, I appreciate the question. I can tell you that I've tried. You know, I want there to be a functioning governmental system in Curry, especially considering that I was part of it as a commissioner. And I will continue to try. I understand that of course Commissioner Alcorn has retired, and that Commissioner appointee designee Hodges has declined, withdrawn, and so I understand that there is going to be a new appointment for a new individual coming up, and I'm hopeful that the board picks a knowledgeable individual in the county, and we have an opportunity in doing so to move forward with those conversations. But I wish I had the wand to be able to fix it, my friend, but I don't.
Part of the reason that there's a couple different reasons. One, that we haven't been able to really weigh in on that because we have 3 counties, we have 3 sheriffs we have 3 district attorneys that are all needing funds, that are all needing help, they're all needing support and encouragement, especially in this day and age. I see what's going on. I think you can't find 2 people who care more about their county. There's a lot of people in this room that care as much as we do, but probably no one who cares more. It's a black eye for us. It's painful, and there's got to be a solution. So when we're in the middle of the legislature, it is really hard to get a spare moment to call commissioners, especially all 9 of them from 3 different counties, but we do. And we value their input very much on everything that we deal with, and we want to see them be successful. We want their sheriff's departments to be successful. So I will be available, and I'd be happy to sit down with our sheriff and our new commissioners, our past commissioners, community leaders, both parties, and see if we can't find a resolution. I've seen too many lawsuits, ridiculous lawsuits in this county, especially the last few years, and another heartbreaking moment. So, but I care enough, and I think, again, everybody here does as well, to try and find a solution. So, the sooner we get started, the better. And whoever the new commissioner is, I wish him the very, very best. And as David said, Senator said, we will be a very active resource for the citizens of this county.
6086. No, 6086, last 4 numbers.
My name's Jonathan. I really didn't have a question coming here. I wanted to listen to what was going to be said.
Okay.
So I'm going to address that just as a feeling, getting it off of my chest. So when it was brought up about changing the vote in, mail-in vote, I didn't hear any answer come from you. You talked quite a lot, but I didn't quite hear anything being addressed. You said, somebody yelled out, we voted on that. And then I heard, well, we can vote on it again. So my question really is that how much money is spent on legislation that nobody wants done? And my real question is, why would it be brought up in the first place when the majority in the state like the status quo, so that you guys said, well, we're state, we don't have anything to do with the federal. But it seems to me you're just following Trump's agenda. I don't know what you guys think and feel totally on that, because I just moved here, I don't know the coast politics.
Well, welcome.
Okay? But, what
So what's the question?
Yeah, well, the question was, why spend money on legislation, spending our tax money on something that nobody wants done? So that means and to me, that's just Trump's agenda, wanting to do the damage that he's doing, and you guys are just going along with it. It doesn't seem to be that
You
you're
wanna
independent.
debate the president, or do you want?
So is there a question?
It doesn't.
Why do you support this bill?
Oh, my goodness.
It doesn't seem that you're independent of the federal legislation and what they want to do.
I drafted the bill before Trump was elected president.
He's been around longer than his re-election right now, and his agenda's been out there for a long time.
So we can have a debate on the floor here, sir?
No. So I thought I answered the question, but let me be very clear. The reason why,
Show us the proof.
so the reason why that I wanted to put forth the legislation is because the legislature has changed vote by mail significantly by passing motor voter, that whenever you get registered, you register for your driver's license, you're automatically registered to vote.
No, it's a choice.
By passing,
It's a choice.
by passing Oregon Health Authority, when you sign up for the Oregon Health Plan,
That's a
you're registered to vote. By then also changing where you have the opportunity for your ballot to be counted up to 7 days after election day. Those are the three things. And so I decided to say, okay, hey, let's put forward a piece of legislation to allow the citizens of Oregon to reaffirm whether or not they like vote by mail. And we did. So here we go.
So it was said
And we can
here,
move on now.
I heard more than one person say that the people don't want it. Well, you live in your world, and we live in all the world, and all the people I'm sorry. That all the people we represent do not necessarily share your views or my views. They want something done to give them trust back in the system. And so I think the bill's excellent. I testified in favor of it. We'll bring it to the vote of the people again. Why would you be opposed to that? I'm not sure why. I don't understand.
House,
So I just answered.
so 60-54.
So I'm Kathleen Dixon, thank you, Court and David, for being here
Good to
today.
see you.
Hi, Kat.
Good to see you both. My question is this. You're both aware that Curry County's economy is reliant on tourism. In light of the fact that this current administration is making people scared to come to this country, what are you doing for Oregon and specifically for Curry County to change that narrative so that we don't lose?
So, you want to start? So, I'm not. So I guess I'm not familiar with the fear that. And I'm just going to wait for you all to finish talking and I will.
So I'll go with this. Portland, once a proud city. We all love to go there. Hey, I'm trying to answer your question. Please just make an agreement so we don't interrupt, okay? You might learn something, and we'll learn something from the questions, and we'll go face the world together. Because we've got a lot of issues to solve. Thank you. Portland once was a place we loved to go. It was the absolute metropolitan dream of Oregon. People wanted to live there. People wanted to move and work there. We brought in tremendous IT businesses. And it was just like I say, a source of pride. Now, it is an absolute disgrace throughout the United States. I got so your taxpayers just paid $4 million to paint over the graffiti instead of bringing law enforcement into rural county. I can't support that, folks. So I wish, I went into the legislature 2 years ago saying, I wonder if I could reach out to my Portland friends. I wonder if I could do my part to help save this city. Because crime is rampant. But my gosh, look at Portland State. The anti-Semitic portion of that. Okay, so you're saying, Kathleen, we got 20 people talking at the same time. You said that, if I understood correctly, that the Trump administration is saying bad things about Oregon, and so people don't want to come over here? I'm asking for clarification. I'm asking for clarification. Did I misunderstand you?
Yes.
Okay, so
I'm happy to jump in.
What I said was, what are you going to do to address the narrative that is currently going on in this country? People from other countries are afraid to come here because of the Trump administration. They are stopping people at the border. They are detaining people at the border. They are putting people in prisons without due process, and that is making people afraid to come. And if you're not paying attention to the news, I'm sorry.
I do pay attention to the news, and I'm sorry that you would choose to insult me on that. That's really a surprise. It's getting more insulting.
So Kathleen, when it comes to our beautiful place on the southern Oregon coast, of course, we always try to promote tourism the best we can. Business Oregon, ACVA, we have legislation to promote our seafood industries that we're working on and moving through. We both work very well with Congresswoman Boyle, who is, of course, in her position. As far as directly with the Trump administration, I am not directly engaged in the Trump administration on anything.
That's not what I'm asking you. I'm asking you guys what you can do to change the narrative so that the Curry County's tourism economy doesn't suffer.
Personally.
Can you do for us so that our tourism economy doesn't suffer?
Okay, so we have House Bill 3556.
Can you talk to the people in Canada? Say, hey, ignore BC and just come to Curry because this, and this. Can you do something like that?
So we promote, I mean, I promote Southwest Oregon all the time in my district. And to come visit and play. I often say everything's better at the beach. We have of course, the Oregon Legislative Coastal Caucus that consists of 3 coastal senators, and every single one of them say the Central Coast is better for Senator Anderson, and North Coast is better for Senator Weber.
But we got the edge.
South Coast is by far the best. We have to compete. We talk about this all the time as well because we don't have a direct line to I-5, and B, those larger communities that to draw from as the Central and North Coast do in Portland and Eugene. So directly, we try to have those conversations, Catherine, as best we can. I always, when I put out my newsletters, try to put pictures about, to come to the Southern Oregon coast and enjoy Southwest Oregon.
So it sounds as though you don't, correct me if I'm wrong, you don't perceive there to be a problem, that you think people are going to come? That you don't think that the federal government is
No, I don't think the federal government's scaring people. So if you take someone that the MS-13 gang member, the two judges ruled that he was part of that system. And we know he's a wife beater, okay? So Kathleen, I had the director of Travel Oregon with a 20-minute meeting just last week. Okay, I floated him down the Rogue Wild section in 19 years ago when he first come on board. And I said, hey, is Curry County, is Coos County getting our fair share of the promotion? What do we need to do to do our part? This is just last week. And it was a great visit. And I've always been involved in Oregon Coast Visitors Association, and I was in the tourism business forever. Are we dependent on outside area, interstate people visiting our area? Yes, we have some tough competition out there. One of the things that Todd Davis had mentioned to me, he says there's a lot of trash in your streets. Where's that coming from? There's a lot of abandoned RVs. Where's that coming from? So House Bill 3556, the reason I wanted to mention that is because that's one of the toughest votes I ever made. In my committee on general government, emergency management, veterans, one of my 3 committees, I was the casting vote that said, no, we can't go that route. The bill basically was to take money, and this is why it was so difficult, was to take money from tourism promotion and put a greater level into the city so that they could fix their streets and et cetera, et cetera. The tourism people, though, had a tremendous apprehension that it would not stop there and they would not be able to do their promotion as they are now, not to the level that they want to keep doing. So again, that was a very tough vote. And so you ask, what are we doing? That's just 2 things when it comes to visitor promotion. And there you have it. Thank you.
You're looking at it, not coming up with this.
6070. 6070? No, 6070? How about 6048?
Oh, I think my mom had the number there. You want to ask a question, Mom?
You had did you have 6070? Okay.
We want to go back to where our past president sent all of that money to his family and his children and everything, the things that he did. And yet we're sitting here talking about that there's no money. He went through millions, and you want him back.
No, I
Trump's
don't.
gonna be 26 million just in golf.
Could you repeat the question of what she said?
We know he was corrupt with the Chinese government, so that says a lot right
A little too close to home. A little too close to home.
That is it. No, he's not convicted.
there. So next question.
Merle, thank you.
Yeah.
We appreciate it. 6048.
Right. As a reporter, do you know if I'm allowed to record the whole room or just not? As a reporter, do you know if I'm allowed to record the whole room or just not? You can record the whole room.
I have a question. What's going on with making sure that our LGBTQ young adults and youth are safe in the state of Oregon and parts of Central Oregon as well?
Well, I think that's the easiest one of the day. The state legislature is made up of a supermajority of Democrats. So they're the ones that actually make every decision that occurs in the state and lead the state. And so they are doing what they can to make sure that the existing protections for the LGBTQ plus community are there.
Thank you.
We love our LGBT. So in other words, the Republican majority need to be gone.
No, that's not true. That's not true. There's laws to protect all of us from any kind of bias and any kind of prejudice. The laws are state and federal.
You're kind of a horrible person. 6074. Yes, sir.
I just want to bring it down to a personal level. I live on Social Security bar where there's no law enforcement, period. And with no law enforcement, the destruction of the Checo River is just going on nonstop with no punishment. And it just empowers these people to destroy a beautiful piece of nature. And so that's what happens when we have no law enforcement enforcing any laws that are on the book. And it's been pushed up to the state level. It's above the county now. And so it's going to be on your doorstep. But it's personal and it's destructive. And with no citations being written, it's just going unchecked. Thank you.
Well, I'm so sorry that is occurring. The situation is, it's financial resources that fund, it's what is the problem with the friction, of course, with the sheriff and the commissioners. Please email my office if you haven't already in regards to having a larger state presence, and we will do what we can because the Chetco is critically important.
Something I might add to that, you heard me mention a bit ago that law enforcement spending in Oregon has gone down down to 5.2%. 10 years ago, it was almost 6%, and it should be going the opposite direction in my view, and that's how I vote, because it's prevention, crime prevention. A lot of law enforcement in my family background. There has to be consequences. We're closing jails in our state instead of making sure that people pay consequences for bad decisions. And we're short of district attorneys. I have one bill that was to give them additional support. Depending on the size of the county, they would get additional deputies. We got to go after the people that are committing the crimes. If we don't, there'll be chaos in the streets, and we're starting to see a little bit of that. And so, that's not a very upbeat message, but it is the truth. And I think everybody in this room realizes and sees it. So how did we get here? How did we get here? Frankly, I think the wrong people have been in charge of Oregon government for the last 40 years. And that's why we are where we are. That's my opinion. And the majority of the people in my district believe that. They believe that. And they are hardworking, honorable people that just want to save their country and leave something really good for their kids and grandkids.
Sir, where's your number 74, 6074?
Yes.
Thank you. Again, I'm happy to, we do have state police. It's one of the issues when we talked about earlier that why the state would step in is because of the resources that are being used for law enforcement and so forth. Again, I'm incredibly sorry. Is there any way that the city of Brookings would be interested in doing something there at all?
We've been in front of Brookings City Council, we've been in front of our commissioners. Everybody realizes there's a drug issue problem.
Yeah.
There's destruction. Everybody sympathizes with us, and nobody's doing anything to stop the damage that's going on.
Okay.
What happened to the $250,000 in funds?
6057. 6057 is the next number. No 6057? 6080. No 6080? 6062.
Ah.
There you go.
Oh, okay. Give me a minute to say my question. I need to, number one, I am for very much the off-wind generators. Global warming is the number one problem facing the human race today, and we need to make some changes explosively to get a hold of this. 50% of our coral reefs are now gone, and when you talk about the wind generators doing damage, global warming is acidifying the ocean, and heating the ocean, that's going to kill more than the wind generators ever thought to do. So, I know that the current administration doesn't have much to say about this, and David, a number of years ago, when Trump was in his first term, you said you didn't agree with him in all issues. And we were talking about global warming now. You mentioned global warming during your introduction as part of the committees you were on. What's happening? What's happening now that's getting us a hold of this problem?
And thank you for the question. So in Oregon, I actually have legislation that I drafted in my Energy and Environment Committee that looks at solar projects in the state, mainly in central and eastern Oregon, where they're better suited, and next to current transmission. Been working on legislation that would help expedite transmission for those renewable projects. Been working on legislation that looks at small modular reactors that have a very small carbon footprint. The SMRs but produce a huge amount of energy, 300 megawatts usually when it comes to the SMRs, and they can be tiered up. I'm pushing back against the investor-owned utilities that have said that they're going to meet the RPS, and then have said, no, actually, we're not going to do that. RPS is Renewable Portfolio Standard. I am, and so we're working on legislation to do that. And hold those IOUs accountable so that they do meet the RPS and roll out those more renewables. And I think, so that's what I've been working on personally and within my Energy and Environment Committee. As far as the environment itself, court's he might not support a piece of legislation, Senate Bill 551, I think it was, where I voted to ban, with my chair of my E&E committee, to ban plastic bags and the small hotel toiletries. And you're going to have to ask for your ketchup packet from now on, and your disposable silverware. Because I've walked too many beaches and too many rivers, and frankly, it's just really bad for our environment and what's happening. I know that wasn't part of your question, but
Okay, I appreciate that. The major problem we're having now is with vehicles. Mm-hmm. What's happening to deal with the vehicle emission problem?
So I actually. Just give me a minute and I'll tell you. I've actually put forward legislation during the cap and trade times that would have increased the state's privilege tax. So it's kind of eloquent how they wrote it. The privilege tax is when you buy a new vehicle, you pay a tax to do so. The majority of that money then goes into an EV rebate program. I draft, and it's based on not where you buy it, but where you register the vehicle. And so a lot of our vehicle emissions are in Portland. Lots of traffic. A lot of our lower income families in Portland drive older vehicles that are less energy efficient. So I put forth a bill that would have increased the privilege tax, but only within the metropolitan area of Portland, so within Metro. And then would have doubled the EV rebate for lower income Oregonians that live within Metro, because that's also where the charging stations are, right? And the charging infrastructure. And unfortunately, the majority party would not even allow it to have a hearing. But it would have taken a lot of cars, older, more, less fuel efficient cars, off of the road in an area where they do have smog, they do have air quality issues because of the traffic and the emissions associated with it. So.
Thank you again for the question. So this map, I know it's going to be hard for some of you to see, but you see the border of Oregon, and the red represents the amount of forest land, basically the amount of federal owned property, okay? The amount of federal owned property in the state of Oregon. The timber we have here is the greatest carbon sequestration you can find anywhere on the planet. Oregon puts out 0.04% of the emissions in the world. So it's nothing wrong with Oregon trying to lead. However, when it comes to the amount of money we spend on that, and if you talk to my Eastern Oregon ranchers and farmers, they'll tell you solar's making some good headway, but onshore wind is not working for them. They get some subsidies sometimes, which taxpayers have to pay for, but the thing about the solar is they raise them up high and they shade the cold crops. So they're learning some new techniques there to grow food. Hey, thanks, yeah. You know, I've been on the beach here my whole life. I don't see the rising tides coming up more than, you know, just the climate cycle. I'm not saying I disagree with global warming or anything that you have obviously studied well. But I don't think the Antarctic is melting, and I think that it's a cycle. Okay.
Denial! Denial!
Step into that.
You're about science, man! Stop making decisions for us!
So, okay, go back 50 years ago. We had one like that. Okay, we had a high tide, just like we had a 50-year flood this past early March. Okay, so okay, it makes you wonder. Okay, but what are we going to spend our money on? Okay, where are we going to focus so that we can overcome some of the problems? You believe that it's maybe the #1 issue, and I respect that. Okay, and I want to learn and listen. I just don't know if I agree with it. I have been following some scientists that study CO2, say it's part of our whole planet, our whole system. And, well, it may not be something you agree with, but they have credibility, just like both sides have. You know, you learn by listening. So I do appreciate that question, and I think we have to be on our toes. That is one of many, many critical issues. Thank you.
I will add, the agrivoltaic stuff is pretty interesting. We're going to be having a informational meeting on that in my E&E committee coming up. We've done the chamber deadline, and so now we're in areas where we aren't going to be stressed on hearing bills that we're going to be moving. Because I want to save farmland, and our land use system in the state isn't always the easiest, and they won't allow, you know, our farmers are aging and the kids won't come back. Might want to come back, and take over the farm, but they don't want to own the parents, and they can't build another house on less than 160 acres. But the science that they have with agrivoltaics that they're doing at OSU is pretty interesting in regards to the water content in the soil because of the solar panels that tilt and follow the sun is much higher. So, and because of the warmth associated with it, the growth rate is better So I'm looking forward to learning more in my committee. 6071. Oh, I wish we were playing bingo. I missed bingo last night at the Port.
I'll move up a few seats if it's bothering people.
Thanks for being here, I appreciate it.
Instead of moving next to
I
the
just wanted to
person
say
who
real
faces
quick
the problem.
that I've waited patiently my turn. I'm one of those guys that don't see things the way everybody else might see it individually. I'm a little bit hurt about what Jonathan said, somebody who, welcome to Curry County, you said you just moved here. I was delivered by a little old lady that lives that's sitting up front there, back in 1965, big deal, whatever. And been around the world and lived in a lot of places, including a lot of the cities that have been named Portland in different places, and there's great things in every place I've been. One thing that makes Curry County really great is the ability for people to be able to participate in government and what's going on, and so I appreciate the opportunity to be able to be here and have my turn, which I've waited for patiently here. A little bit bothered by someone who mentioned, that nobody cares about the mail-in voting situation. I guess that makes me a nobody.
Yeah.
And this person who keeps interrupting everybody who's talking, that's unfortunate. I served in the United States Marine Corps and enlisted and have served in combat to be able to defend the rights of people that want to speak out of turn and be rude to everybody else. So I really do appreciate the opportunity to speak. I just had a question about veterans services here. I'm not sure if we have veterans around much anymore. I know that we have some that I recognize. Thank you for your service and Semper Fi over there. I appreciate it. To be somebody who serves unselfishly and gives a blank check to our government, regardless of who's calling the shots, in the Oval Office or whatnot, it means you're a special kind of person, and I appreciate that. And that's why when I left Curry County back in 1984 to join the Marines, and I served in Iraq and Afghanistan, I'm disabled. Partially, I can't hear very well, so when someone else is talking, I can't really hear what you're saying. So I appreciate, people that are being patient and allowing everyone to have an opportunity to speak, because everybody's voice does matter and everybody's voice does count. And anyone who has had a comment, and whether it be for or against something that you're speaking, about, I would jump, I don't want to say jump on a grenade, but I probably would. That's how I'm wired. I would do anything for you if I saw you and ran into you in town here, in our hometown. So I don't hold a grudge. I appreciate you guys. Everybody's opinion matters. So my specific question, I'll get to it real quick here, is regarding veterans legislation. It's kind of been touched on.
Ramble on.
Is it okay if I ask my question?
No, I'm saying he cut this guy off while he was asking his question, saying, "Where's the question?" But you're going and
Can I go ahead and ask my question?
No,
I mean, if you want to argue with me, that's fine. We
Go
can
ahead.
talk about it
But
later.
I can say things
Thank
too.
you for your service to our community. Okay.
I do
So
put
anyways,
forth a lot of
I just
service.
want to know.
You don't know
I've
me.
ran into a couple veterans living out of corner homes, camping on the beach and things like that when I've been out and about in our small community. And I know that people are frustrated by, situations that they may not understand with folks that they can't make a living. Is it okay if I finish, please? Because all I can hear is you out of my one
You
big
seem
ear.
really bothered by me specifically.
Well, I can't hear.
There are a lot of people who are ready for you to get to the point.
Can you stop talking
Go
and then
ahead.
you'll get your turn?
Go ahead.
Thank you. Thanks for your permission. I appreciate that. Maybe you should be on the DOC. Okay, so anyhow, what kind of veteran legislation do we have currently that's on the floor that's being discussed? Or you mentioned, different things that are going on for veterans that will impact our local community here. Veterans matter, and they're worth the time to listen to this answer and this question. So
First of all, thank you. If you're already standing, a veteran, raise your hand. If you're a veteran, would you stand up, please? while to get to that, but we did get it done. God bless you very much. So, there has been 142 veterans-related bills submitted to the legislature on the House side. And I've had some really good work with veterans. I serve on that committee. I'm proud to announce that two of my bills were in the top 10. There's probably only about 6 or 8 will actually make it through. One of them is for hyperbaric oxygen treatment centers. Basically, folks, if you're not familiar with it, just flushes pure oxygen into the brain, so and the body. So for traumatic brain injury, for PTSD, very proud of that. I come out of committee with a unanimous vote. And the second one is for veterans health navigators. And basically that means when they come back to transition into society after being in Iraq or Afghanistan or even Vietnam, they can get somebody that helps them understand what the state and federal services are. And it's just, I think that bill's going to go too, so I really got my fingers crossed. As Senator Brock Smith mentioned, sometimes we're losing our veterans. Camping on the beach. It's the soldiers come back to Vietnam and they were not welcome. And I had the honor of being the keynote speaker at the with the governor's ceremony on the proclamation for Welcome Home Vietnam Veterans just a week ago Friday. But the World War II people, they come back and they build a country, and so it was a little bit easier for them to transition because they were heroes. So, the different wars that we've had, we want to just do all we can to show respect and appreciation and encouragement, and they will come back and contribute greatly to our culture. So, that was the 2 bills I had. What else do we have? You want to go? Sure.
You really do need to be quiet.
Please be quiet.
You're
hardly anything.
You're not just I can hear you over again.
Never, not going to change.
Thank you for answering that.
So we have we have some bills in the Senate as well that deal with veterans. Of course, my father was a 27-year Navy veteran, retired Lieutenant Commander Mustang, who passed away in December. And he, one of the bills that we did move out, it's my Democrat colleague, Senator Meek, is a bill that essentially allows veterans plates for motorcycles, because you can't get a veterans motorcycle plate. You can get a veterans car plate, but not a veterans motorcycle plate. We got a lot of veterans that like to ride motorcycles. I was able to move out early in session a piece of legislation that would allocate, and it's in Ways and Means, $500,000 to Curry County and $500,000 to Coos County to reestablish the veterans mobility van, if you will, to get to the VA medical services in Roseburg. That does not currently exist and hasn't for some time.
Senate Bill 512.
Yep. So that we can move forward with those services. Because we have a lot of veterans that it's hard to get to Roseburg from Brookings, and it's hard to get to Roseburg from Coos Bay for a number of our veterans. So this would help establish that ride program. Now they can partner with Curry Public Transit. I'm not mandating how it gets done. I'm allocating the resources to those individuals so that it can get done. And then the biggest issue for me with regards to veterans right now is making sure that the $35 million that I secured in the 24 legislative session is carried over into the new biennial budget for the 25-26 biennium, and that's the $35 million to build the 3rd Oregon Veterans Home in Roseburg. And we were able to secure that money. It was the largest issue legislative appropriation in the last session. We need to roll it over and keep it. It is on the co-chair's budget framework as a single item, which is a good or a bad thing. But I would just like the interest that's being, because it's in a SPA, so it's gaining interest. I would like the interest to be compounded and put on top of it so that we can keep up with the inflationary cost of construction.
We worked very, very hard on that, and we're hanging on to that $35 million because it turns loose, as the senator said, of about $80 million of federal money, and that money is there. It is allocated, but nobody in the last 6 years has worked harder than this man right here to get that done. And we're kind of holding our breath a little bit, but we're very, very confident.
It's there, and I will say, thank you. I appreciate that, and I want to thank Bill Duncan, who is the head of the Vietnam veterans in Roseburg. He reached out weekend before last. I haven't been home in 5 weeks, so it's great to be home because I'm on Ways and Means, and we've been all over the state with our Ways and Means tour. We were in Astoria, we were at Warm Springs, we were in LeGrand, we were in Gresham. But Bill called and said, "David, what do you need?" And I said, "I need a letter from Jeff and Ron and Val talking about how they're going after the federal end of that money." And by goodness, I got it last Tuesday. And so it was fantastic, and I texted Senator Wyden and texted Senator Merkley and texted Congresswoman Hoyle and thanked them very much for that. So, go team.
Go team.
All right, 6085.
Hi, my question was regarding the vote by mail, and it was answered. It was the first question, but I will use this opportunity to state my overwhelming support for voting by mail. I believe that it's something that we Oregonians are very proud of. I think most Oregonians favor it, and I believe that if it comes to a vote, voting for mail will win.
Democracy in action.
Thank you. 6066. Who's got that one?
Oh, let's get louder, yeah. And I think that's the purpose for today, is getting louder. One of my questions is back to the voting and not necessarily the mail-in, but what are you folks doing in order to keep most of us women's rights to vote, our right to vote? I am truly scared that because my name does not match my birth certificate, mind you, I was raised by a stepfather who never legally adopted me. I cannot prove who I am. What am I going to do? I've been a voting member of society for over 44 years. You're going to take my vote away from me because my name does not match my birth certificate?
I would love to have you get in contact with me, and I will be glad to help you any way I can, especially when it comes to good identification to help you. That I'm sure that weighs heavy on you, and I think there are avenues that we can.
I'm identified. I have a valid driver's license. I am registered to vote. But with the new regime in place, I have the fear that that's going to be wiped away. To protect people in Oregon, what are you going to do for me for that?
I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about 210 again, but it is the definition of valid government-issued identification in Oregon is driver's license, driver permit, state identification card, U.S. passport, or U.S. military identification card. And so I believe if you have all of those things, then Secretary Reed, your local county clerk or Secretary Reed will issue you a ballot.
You're set.
60-52.
You certainly don't think we want to stop women from voting. I didn't hear you on that. Oh, if my grandmother could hear that. My
Right? Well, your mother can hear it.
No, she knows better.
60-52.
That would be me.
Thank you. At this point in the afternoon, I have to say there are many things to say. First, I want to say to you gentlemen, thank you for being here on this beautiful Saturday afternoon. I'd also like to thank Senator Rob Smith for his work on the Climate Committee. This is very important, and it has a whole lot to do with our future when none of us in this room are here anymore. That said, I'd like to move on to say that we are a county in a state, but we are part of a nation. And many people, many Republicans, are starting to come forward and say they are afraid, they are concerned, they are worried. We would like to know how you feel about the articulate gentleman, our veteran in the back, I'm not sure if he's still in the room, saying we all should have a voice. We all should have a voice. Please don't make it harder for us to vote. Thank you.
There was something I was going to say when you mentioned the Climate Committee real quick, and I can't remember what it was.
Climate change is not a hoax.
No, I know that there was, but I can't remember what it was. I apologize.
Well, Taylor family, great to see you. Your contributions to this community are off the chart, both of you, and greatly appreciated. Wonderful and fond memories. We're here today to represent everybody in this room, and the spirit is great. The interruptions are quite surprising, but I understand the frustrations that people have. They're worried about their country, they're worried about their future, they're worried about a lot of things, and they see breakdowns in our culture. And that's why at my age, I'm going full bore, 100%. Sometimes he and I are the only one in the Capitals on Sundays. We're not bragging, not complaining. That's what we signed up for. People are counting on us. They are depending on us to make the very, very best decisions, to get the absolute most updated information we can, to build relationships, reach across the aisle. So we're here, and you do have a voice. And even if I didn't know you in the 40 years that you've been here and part of this community, you would still have a voice. So thank you for that question, and thank you for speaking up.
6088. No, 6088. $6053.
Hey, as everybody's leaving, I think we have some handouts in the back there. If oh, pet him for me.
Yeah, okay. Thank you guys for coming down here. I know that you expected a somewhat hostile crowd. We're trying to control ourselves. I want to thank Fort Boice especially and David Blocksmith for their support for the fishing industry. And we need it. It's a struggling industry from a lot of different outside pressures. But I want to ask you, both of you worked hard on the development of the Coos Bay port, and what I see is the beginning of a thriving industry there. Now we have a problem because your party, the leader of your party, Donald Trump, wants to apply tariffs to all that commerce that comes in and out of Coos Bay. We do export wood to China, and we actually do it sometimes at a benefit because our market goes poorly. So we're going to lose that. We're going to lose a lot of potential to grow our communities there. And it's your party that is driving all this. And as individuals, fine.
You're fine people, I'll say that, maybe with a few hesitation.
You think we just need a little coaching, right?
Washington, D.C., through the state to our local level, the flow is supposed to be the reverse. You're supposed to take our views and take them to Washington, D.C., through the state and through the federal government, through the party. Your party. You are the Republican Party, and your party is driving the majority of these negative things for this little rural community, including the loss of Forest Service jobs, when we're supposed to improve the safety of the forest. This is a huge forest. To bring this forest into what you think is going to be fire resistant. It will never be that way. Nature didn't plan it that way. We can improve it. We can have more yield. We can have better conservation. We can have better water quality. But we can't be killing the funding that is restoring our streams and our salmon. So I want to ask you, all the time that you put in your efforts to get the Port of Goose Bay up and going, and I saw the garnet come in there, great. And I've shipped logs to China and Japan at a better price than what the mills were paying here, because the market is what drives the timber industry. It isn't the trees. There are lots of trees. It's what you can get for selling them and how much it costs to put them in the mill. So,
thank you,
are
John.
you frustrated because the leadership in Washington, D.C. pulled the rug out from under you? Thanks for your time.
John, we had John, I think it was a week ago Sunday, we had a great conversation by phone, and I listened to everything you had to say, and with true admiration and respect, not to mention you and Deb for the work you've done in Gold Beach, the people you've employed. Yes, salmon recovery, to start there, is always been a big issue with us, and we're working as hard as we can go on that. And maybe we can go into more detail later on. But Arnie Roblin, former state senator for how many years? State rep and then a state senator. He pulled me off the House.
Co-speaker.
Oh yeah, that's right. He pulled me off the House floor just about a week ago, and he had the assistant director of the Port of Goose Bay. And he said, "Court, I got some good news." I said, tell me that President Trump is going to support the intermodal project. And he says, absolutely, we got a commitment. I says, is that public? He says, you bet it's public. So the reason I bring that up, and I didn't get to report that to you. So to your point, to your question, we are working behind the scenes. We don't agree with everything on any side. We're just trying to weigh it all out and, again, make the best possible decisions we can. The Forest Service employees, we're working on changing that. And if I don't want to talk over the senator here, but I think I have a solution for the backcountry between Curry County and Josephine County, and that's you all sit down, it's a national park. That's the best way we're going to have multiple use. It's the best way we're going to fight the forest fires and protect our wildlife, protect our watersheds, the most pristine rivers, and we'll still be able to get we can still keep part of the Kalmiopsis sacred and protected, that what little bits left that hasn't burned up, okay, and start all over. And I think that's something that the Trump administration is, and I'm also working with the three leaders that the senator mentioned a bit ago, Congresswoman Hoyle, and the two senators Merkley and Wyden, and we're working on that project. We're not saying it's a good idea, we're looking at it. What a national park, this is the greatest tree growing spot on the planet, it's the most rugged terrain anywhere in North America, the most pristine rivers, and I think it's got at least a worthy idea of checking on merit. Thank you.
Well, John, I appreciate the question. I'm not saying, I have concerns. I have concerns about what we're going to do with fire season coming up and cuts. I am, frankly, I am buried with session. I mean, literally, it's 14 hours a day, 6-7 days a week. And so I have had an initial meeting with my colleague, Assemblyman Watts with our new Council of State Governments West Wildfire and Disaster Preparedness Committee. And that was frankly put together because I've been pushing on this for a long time. It's been this kind of issue with regards to my work. What I found as being at the local level all the way up to the state senate now is the higher you go up, the slower the wheels of government turn, unfortunately. And so in 23, I passed a bill. It was Senate Bill 872 that is kind of the state's position on the federal lands, federal forest, because 82% of the acres burned on the 10-year average from 13 to 23 are burned on federal lands in this state. Of the 18% of acres burned on private land, 15% of those acres are burned because of fires that come off of federal land to private land. And of the 3% of acres burned on fires that start on federal or private land, 98% of those acres are kept to less than 100 because they're managed resource. And so I'm trying to find this balance, and this is data from Oregon Department of Forestry, direct from ODF. And so I'm trying to find this balance of, I don't know a logger. I mean, you got former Representative Krieger back there, who is an avid fisherman, right? Who wants we want clean rivers, we want clean water, and we need to make sure that we have the resources. I just passed legislation it's going to the House that's going to allow hatch boxes again, and it's enshrined in legislation. I mean, our STEP programs in the Coos County are fantastic, and we're going to be making sure that we have the fish incubation nursery program now, is what they call it, but those hatch boxes again. We are pushing for the Port of Coos Bay, the PSIP. I mean, we're losing Bay Area Hospital. Curry General Hospital is good. They're financially solvent. Got them a couple $1 million a few years ago.
You're talking about the Coos Bay Hospital?
Bay Area Hospital in Coos Bay is not doing well.
Right. Our hospital is solvent because we passed a tax levy.
Well,
and we did it locally. And, don't take any credit for that, sir. Because my wife was on the hospital board, and she campaigned for that hospital, and so it was a local issue, and we did not get Harvard to join into it. Same problem that Court pointed out, maybe you did, about when you have these districts in only certain areas, and the other one benefits from it and doesn't pay it in taxes.
I'm very familiar. I was on the city council president in Port Orford when we went ahead and decided to move into the investment of the Fifth Street Clinic. I was supportive of it because the hospital can then generate resources. And I did get Curry General $2 million to make sure they could open the doors down there. And so now, yes, on my behest, yes, that's right. And so I'm glad we're solvent. Bay Area is not. And so when it comes to Bay Area Hospital, it's because of the Medicaid reimbursement is very low. And it's a situation in all rural areas. I work to save Coast Community Health.
Boy, howdy.
And now we have an issue where ADAPT has stepped in to help partner with Coast Community Health and other FQHC because we still want to continue with the expansion down in Brookings so that we can have more medical services down there and primary care providers. The one thing that the PSIP will bring to Coos Bay and the region is it will solidify the solvency of Bay Area Hospital and its need because of the payer mix will change with insurance reimbursements. And then I'll just lastly end. I know we went off on a tangent in your question, John.
You're getting on my wheelhouse.
But yeah, and the healthcare is important, and so I am working with Curry General as well to get the stopgap that they need to get the infusion center open, which is critically important here. And that was actually that CDS money that was it Val and Berkeley got a couple of years ago, right?
So will that be something that's actually legislated at the state level?
Yeah.
Or will that be something coming out of Washington?
No, it's at the state level. I'm working with CEO. We have a capital construction request. I think it's 2.1 million to finish that, and it's a top priority of mine to get that done because our residents in Brookings have to drive to Coos Bay to get their cancer treatment.
So John, you make the point that happened locally, and what a proud moment it was when Brookings had an emergency room for the first time in their history. 14,000 people that it was capable of serving. So that $2 million we worked on, especially the senator, that was a start. And yes, we were all a little bit disappointed in our neighbors to the south not joining the hospital taxing district. Port Orford did. But there's always hope. Bring the communities together, solve our problems. Don't rely on any governments, but yet lobby the governments constantly for a reasonable share of what our rural communities deserve. Thank you.
6059.
You're not going to get it.
6059. Oh, there you go.
Hello, and thank you, gentlemen, for being here. And I'm sorry for any disturbances that you've had to talk over, but I think it shows you the frustration and the anxiety that society in general is going through right now with our current government and actually the world state of affairs. And it's all seeming to be trickling down to the communities in a very real way in our minds, with the thought of so many important things being changed, such as maybe Medicare, maybe Medicaid, maybe our schools. And I know you have a big job, because so much of what you are hearing comes back to people having housing and having a place to live. The crime, the illnesses, the people on the street who are living there, the veterans who can't be addressed. It's a big issue, and we are really struggling by seeing more and more homelessness on the streets. And it's a giant problem in the United States that does not ever reach the top headline in any election ever. But I think a part of that comes down to educating people. And now we're facing the fact that the schools may not get federal funding from the government. And we are a rural school districts, as many people in the United States are. And with this rural school district situation we're in, we're also an elderly, aging school district. I don't think there's a residential spot in Port Orford that votes, in Curry County that votes, that has an age under 50 years old. And so where is the money supposed to come from when many people are veterans and don't have a lot of money? Many of your people are elderly and don't make much Social Security. Many people are seeing their funds deplete that they saved and we're hoping their investments will pay off. And maybe they're not going to be able to live long enough to see the stock market where they had trust come around. So my main question is, as hard as you have to work, and we are so concerned, what are you going to do to help keep the federal funds in the poor rural districts? The cities need it too. and we're seeing more and more people being less and less educated. And I really don't think that has to do with where we place the tampons in the schools. So how are we going to
This is
keep
educational
our
for
schools
sure.
alive and well, and our children educated? They may not have a way to get to school. This is a rural community. When they get there, yes, we have a drug problem. How are they going to get something to eat so that they can be alert in school? How are they going to get home? We have been fortunate enough that we do not have somebody destroying the bodies of our children through killing them in the classes. We've just been fortunate enough. But how are we going to keep homeless people out of here? And how are we going to, not out of here, but how are we going to deal with them so that they actually can count and they are able to contribute? And how are we going to get our kids educated and safe and a home with a roof over their head? That's why we elect you.
Well, thank you. Real quick, thanks for bringing up empathy for veterans again. We have a stand down in Brookings on April 25th. It just it's going to be kind of statewide, and it's about traumatic brain injuries, and it'll be at the Southwest Oregon Community College. What was the time again?
It starts at 10 a.m.
10 a.m. Thank you very much.
Traumatic brain injury is not the main
Well,
focus.
time out.
Okay.
I just want, there's handouts back there in case anybody's interested. I didn't want everybody to leave before we understood that. So I'm going to offer this, okay? You heard a lot of anti-Republican comments here today, okay? Should we take our lumps? Should our party take our lumps? You bet. But we've not been in control of state government for many, many years, about 30 or 35 years. So in that, I believe that in a healthy economy will rise all boats, okay? And the reason I believe that is because the free market has proven year after year historically that works. The free market works. So, okay, we can debate that if you want, but unless we have a healthy economy, unless we understand addictions, that starts when kids are in school. You tell them it's okay to smoke. You tell them it's okay to smoke marijuana. You tell them it's okay to have beer, whatever. Some kids can handle it, most cannot. Marijuana, the guy that's on his back porch after work, totally functional, who cares? That's part of our culture.
Answer the question!
I'm getting to it. Boy, that's pretty shrill. We're not protecting our kids, okay? We're not protecting our kids from the dangers of marijuana, and 1 out of 6 becomes addicted for life, which adds to the entire homeless issue, breakdown of the families, okay? And you could go, you can just take it from there. I mean, what does history teach you? If the family unit is not secure, what happens? And so all these problems that you just very eloquently laid out, why aren't we looking upriver instead of downriver? We're always reacting, and we're always spending money, and then when we run out of money, we go, we gotta go tax the taxpayers more, the citizens more. And so there's a limit to what the budgets can handle, and that is the argument of our day. So it's addiction, it's a breakdown of the family.
Dude, what was your question? What did she ask? You didn't answer it.
The state budget has about 1/3 federal funds, a little more than 1/3 federal funds. The roughly, it has doubled in the last 12, 13 years. We do leverage, especially when it comes to healthcare. We leverage a lot of federal dollars. So we invest $1 and we get 7 back. That's what we do for Medicaid funding and so forth. When it comes to homelessness and addiction, I think a lot of it is hand in hand. Curry County is a desert for treatment, and it's very sad and unfortunate. We've been trying to change that. I'm very frustrated with that aspect of it because I'm a huge supporter of like Bay Area First Step, which is a peer-to-peer program out of Coos Bay. ADAPT has a similar program in Douglas County in Roseburg, and a dear friend of mine who was an addict and finally hit rock bottom, and then was able to be greeted by this organization by another former addict, and then get the transitional housing that she needed, and then got into the program, and then now is a lead peer counselor getting a paycheck in the program. But unfortunately, the Oregon Accountability Commission, after Bay Area First Step said, you know what, and they were encouraged to move into Brookings to fill those gaps for homelessness and support, the OAC didn't give them any money. They spent millions to buy the old the Rockies building down there in the Harbor Plaza.
Oh.
The Blue Realty building.
Yes.
Yes.
Palm Industry.
Down there in Brookings, or in Harbor, and now they didn't get any funding to move forward the program, and I'm damn upset about it. And so crafted 881. It had a hearing last week. I'm finally getting some traction from my Democrat colleague, Senator Brzezinski, who's the co-chair of the Addictions and Recovery Committee, because they didn't give any funding to Lane County either, and that's where he represents. And so we're working on amendments, and what the bill would do. And Curry County is kind of it's a unique space because we don't have public and mental health anymore because it was given back to the state. But it removes the AOC altogether, works with the Criminal Justice Commission, but just as the pass-through agency for the funding formulas and allocations that then go to the counties, and then the counties create the contracts with the service providers so that they can be held accountable with MOUs and those contracts with oversight from the Oregon Health Authority. You will see much better service to our folks with addiction and those that are homeless, because Bay Area First Step deals with going out to them. They make sure they get tested for tuberculosis and other ailments. They make sure that they have what they need, and really try as a peer-to-peer counselor to give them the hand up that's necessary, not the hand out, so to speak, to get things done. So I was trying to answer that part of your question. We need the transitional housing element to that, but it's hard because the good Lord isn't making any more dirt on the southern Oregon coast. We have a lot of vacation rentals. I'm opposed to rent control because I think it takes the long-term rentals out of the pool and puts them into short-term rentals because it's just a better dollar investment. And Dana will correct me, but I think in Port Orford we have 196 short-term rentals in the city of Port Orford before the moratorium was set, and that's way too many. But that wasn't the case until rent control came on and overlaid it. And frankly, on the coast, we have serious problems because you have a lot of secondary homes. There's more so on the central and north coast, but we have a lot of secondary homes here that aren't being used. There is a piece of legislation, I know, from Senator Broadman, and I want to say Representative Gamba from Bend and Milwaukee, that would require fees be assessed on individuals that have housing, that have houses that aren't lived in more than 6 months out of the year. And those funds would then go to county services. I remember reading that legislation. I'm a crazy person. I'm in there on Sundays every week, and I read every bill in every committee that's up for public hearing for the coming week. So I hope that helps a little bit answer your question.
Well, I would like to know, how are we gonna keep the federal funds coming to our schools? Not just here, but in America, because other counties are worse off than we are in America. How are we gonna keep the schools open?
Well, the schools are going to be open because we have, in Oregon, we have a property tax that funds schools. It goes in a big tub that's at the state, then the cat tax, the corporate activities tax, that generates a little over $2 billion a year, is dumped in there. And then it's divvied out, and then we put general fund in there, and it's divvied out by student, ADMW. So,
And the question is that sufficient to have good education?
well, it hasn't been yet, because we're in the bottom. We're in the bottom percentile when it comes to reading, writing, and arithmetic, and I did not support reducing the graduation requirements for that reason, but I was overruled by my colleagues. So 6051. You're welcome. 6051. Okay.
Hi. Thanks for being here. The questions, sort of two more questions. I started out with an initial question. I'm from Port Orford.
Yeah.
And I love Port Orford. It's small. I used to live in Brookings. I've been on the coast for about 11 and a half years. I was a teacher for 24.
Yeah.
Taught in Brookings for a few years. And so I have a two-part question and then just a few comments. Mr. Boice, I would invite you, I appreciate your plastic comments about, I pick up trash every day.
Sorry, Brock Smith, this is Boice.
Yeah, I know,
Oh,
sorry.
okay. Sorry.
I appreciate what you said previously about plastic bags and cutlery on the beach. I pick that up every day.
Thank you.
I go with my border collie on the beach, we walk, maybe 4 times a week and just pick up garbage. Okay, and I just do that. And I appreciate that. So what I want to say is, I am on the beach, this is about water, so I'm on the beach on a daily basis. And Mr. Boice, I would invite you to walk on the beach with me and take a look at the wave action in the winter and how it's eroding the coastline. Climate change is real. I taught science for years. And so my question then also relates to water. In Port Orford, a grant was written initially, and I know, Mr. Smith, you know about this. We just lost, and then it was reworked. It was for the water infrastructure of Port Orford, right? Because we have aging water system, and we pay a huge amount on our utility bills for water, and you know that. I know you know that.
I live there.
Okay, so the grant was rewritten, and it looked good. It looked like it was going to go through. $4 million worth of funding, and Trump cut it off. You are not responsible for everything that Trump does, and I know you said, both of you, that you don't completely agree with everything, right? So that, I found out today about that grant, and I do grant writing on the side. So it's hugely devastating to the community, and it will be when people find out more about that. So that's my one thing that I want to say, and that, that is your party that you represent. And it's devastating to people on fixed incomes. I'm one of them. We're paying minimum water bill, maybe $115, and I use the minimum amount of water. I collect all my water. I water all my plants with it. So there's that. So I want to know how you will help us out in Port Orford in terms of addressing that issue. And then the other part of my question is this. I know that you're involved with the golf course. My opinion is you don't need another golf course. Bandon has a number of golf courses. There's one that's in the process on Knapp Road, right outside of Port Orford, and that's already being developed. All right, and you know about that. So they want our water. They drilled wells. I can see what they're doing from my walks on the Coast Guard Hill, so I can see that. So I want to know, they want our water, and you're involved with that. So what is your compelling interest with Elk River Development, and what is pushing you forward? What is going on with that? I'd like to know that.
So, first question, the grant program, so the grant, the $4 million grant, my understanding, there was a number of individuals that were after that grant, that we got past the initial phase of the grant, like we did before in the first brick grant that I helped write. And so there was no guarantee that we were gonna get the brick grant by any means, at all. I did write a letter just last week, at the request of Mayor Boice, supporting, a congressionally designated funding request that is gonna be put in by, I believe Congresswoman Hoyle and Senator Merkley. And so she has that letter of support for them and the Committee on Appropriations. When it comes to the golf course project, I've been involved with that. I passed the first plan for that as the chair of the Curry County Board of Commissioners back in 2013. It is all about jobs, and as a former teacher, and you should understand, as my longtime service on the Port Orford Langway School Board, we have lost kids in our schools because there's no family wage jobs in our community. And many of our parents travel to Coos Bay on a daily basis for jobs. And to that point where Representative Boice assisted in getting the city of Port Orford $750,000 to assist in using the property for a secondary outfall, which will save the citizens of Port Orford millions of dollars, because we're still paying for an outfall that was taken out by an El Nino over a decade and a half ago, right? And now we're paying for a new outfall that is there. And so having, not only is it the best science to not have our treated effluent go in the ocean, it is listed as the #1 recommendation, with actually Port Orford being listed with Seattle and LA as the #1 recommendation is keeping in the West Coast Governor's Ocean Acidification and Hypoxia Work Group, keeping the treated effluent, but to allow for that public-private partnership to have a secondary outfall and then have the funding given to the city to do so. That investment will save the citizens of Port Orford millions of dollars in the future, because frankly, because of the science and everything that's occurring, I don't know that we're going to be able to have an outfall in the ocean once that one goes away again, because of the storms that we do have and that are increasing.
So I had something real quick here. We left Coquille at the town hall there, coming through Port Orford. It was a little bit windy, just like it is in Gold Beach. But driving through and seeing the new dragonfly plant nursery, wasn't that the coolest thing? I mean, I've been home since the third week of January. And I'm just driving and seeing a police car, keeping the traffic down, the new pavement, the new sidewalks, people I've known and loved all my life and tolerate me. And it was just really cool to drive through there. So I have 8 incorporated cities in my district. You have Winston on the top end, 6,000 people, 7. Brookings, same thing on the south end. So those 8 incorporated cities, they've turned in a lot of terrific, important capital funding projects. And so in 2023, the senator referenced the 700, I think it was 730,000.
750.
Okay, you're probably right. You usually are. Anyway, that was something we were really proud to do and contribute to that. But that doesn't mean we're not still working for every one of our communities, even if they're not incorporated. But there's just a lot of needs out there. There's a smaller pie that's available. It's been asked about the federal funding, and that is very, very important. We've got to work with every and any administration. Doesn't matter who's in the office. That 1/3 of our budget is I mean, we've talked about Forest Service employees, we've talked about, you know, where we need it for public safety and our law enforcement professionals. So we got a big job, but we're going to have to just keep fighting and pushing and pursuing and questioning. That's what I got. Thank you.
We have to go. I mean,
I just have one. We closed the library at 5, and I've got employees that need to go home, and they're parked back. They can't get out. So if you're parked in this fire lane, please move. Thank you.
And so,
destroy the treasonous relationship between Trump and
so it's a privilege to represent all of you.